Here's me. I'm getting a tour of my favorite fire station of all time. Just look at it. Isn't it beautiful?
Is the bricks, is it painted?
No, not painted. Glazed.
It's glazed.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Well, admittedly, it's not beautiful in the conventional sense, but just look at that facade. Oh, and that angle.
Like a knife edge there.
This is fire station number 4 in Columbus, Indiana. You can tell because it has a big number 4 on it. That's the designation of the district that it serves. It's also on the fire trucks.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good, nice to see you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Welcome to Station 4.
Thank you.
Yeah, a very popular destination for a lot of architectural students, a lot of visitors that visit our community. They love coming to Station 4 and checking out this gem.
Fire stations are optimized for their purpose. They just can't afford not to be with how crucial their role is in keeping us safe. They accommodate fast and safe deployment of specialized equipment in an emergency while remaining accessible and comfortable for people. Just looking at the buildings, though, it's not always clear how they work or why they are designed the way that they are. So I thought I'd take a minute to discuss the typical parts that are present in most fire stations. And I'll use the plan of station number 4 as our example. First, this is the area known as the apparatus bay or the garage. That's where the firefighting vehicles such as the fire trucks or ambulances are housed. It's a large area with big doors to allow easy access for vehicles. They can usually drive right through. What's housed in there is related to the specifics of the district that the station serves. For instance, fighting fires in homes requires different equipment than rescuing someone from a car crash.
Here we know that we're going to have residential fires and emergency medical calls. In our downtown station, we have a lot of water down that way, so they have water rescue equipment. Larger buildings, the apparatus have the ability to elevate water streams through some of the ladders that we have. So there's a lot that goes into it.
You always need an area for hanging and storing each of the firefighters' gear, and here's where they do it in station number 4.
Yeah, this is the gear that keeps us safe. When we go into some of those residential fires, it's the same temperature that you would cook a pizza in the oven at home, 450 plus degrees.
We just had pizza.
Did you?
Yeah,
So this is what protects us.
Yeah, my mouth is still burning a little bit from that alone.
Next to the apparatus bay might be the hose tower, which is a tall structure that's used for hanging the hoses to dry after they've been used and then washed off.
We'll come back, we'll wash all the hose, scrub off carcinogens and dirt from the house and soot. So we'll wash it off. We'll hang it up in our hose tower to dry, keep it from getting moldy and mildewy.
But there's a whole lot of other parts of a fire station too. They also have the living quarters, and in this case, it's the whole left side of the building. Firefighters work long shifts, usually like 24 hours at a time, and they require a place to sleep, eat, and relax. The living quarters includes bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living area. And that's where they watch the Colts play on Sundays.
This is a great size station for 3 firefighters. It gives everyone a little bit of space as it is so small.
There's also an office area for planning, reporting, and communication with other emergency services. There's usually also a workout room since firefighting requires everyone to stay physically healthy.
It gives our firefighters an opportunity to maintain their physical fitness, work out, and release some of that stress you get over the job. It can be a very stressful job at times.
Sure.
So this might be a good time to actually talk about why this is my favorite fire station. And it really has nothing to do with the fact that it's a fire station. It's more for nerdy architectural reasons. And for that, we'll need to go over a little bit of background. The architect Robert Venturi had recently completed an awesome house for his mom that absolutely shook architecture to its core. This town, Columbus, Indiana, has this thing where the CEO of Cummins, the diesel engine company that you might have heard of, would pay the architect's fees for civic buildings as long as they used good architects. Venturi was one of the good ones. This is before he and Denise Scott Brown joined forces to become even better. But the task at the time was set for this eventual Pritzker Prize winner to create a small, completely ordinary building that was easy to maintain. And is located on a really busy road. No one will ever walk anywhere near it, but they'll blaze past it at about 40 miles an hour in their car. In Venturi's words, it's super ordinary, super economical building here on a super dull road. But fire stations are supposed to be important buildings. They should look like noble civic structures. They should be welcoming to the community at the same time as they're finely tuned machines. And Venturi does a great job here at managing these competing needs. Let's just start by looking at the facade. At first, it looks symmetrical, like you would expect for any important civic building. There's a tall tower in the middle, flanked by 2 lower areas. one for the trucks and one for the firefighters. So the two sides aren't exactly equal. And in fact, the interior behind the facade is actually way taller on the right side than it is on the left side. But the facade actually disguises that, so you don't actually know it by looking at it from the front. Instead, it presents itself to the street in a way that isn't actually true to the building behind. You only discover the reality by wrapping around the corner to the other side. The front is made specifically to be seen by moving cars. In that way, it's like a sign or a billboard along a highway. In fact, the architect actually goes to great lengths to make it look as flat as possible, even cutting off the round tower so that it's flat on the front. There's other little Easter eggs on here too, like the black little signature bricks. But besides these Easter eggs, there are some other fun oddities in here too. The shape that's made by the white bricks doesn't actually match the form of the overall building. This mismatch makes it appear as though it has a different proportion than it really does. Like this van that has an image of a sports car on it, with the remainder between the two blacked out. In plan, the host tower feels like it's being pressed into the rest of the building, disrupting the kitchen and then making people walk all the way around it. There's also a lot of geometric relationships in the plan that are important to the building's layout too, like the square of the overall footprint, or the way things line up when you connect the two corners of the square. Fire station number 4 is a relatively small, utilitarian structure. It serves its purpose, and it does so with modest means, but are arranged in a way to have complex architectural significance. This was the 1960s, and admittedly, Venturi wasn't too experienced with fire station design and made a few choices that weren't ideal. This is fire station number 5, built 20 years later. District 5 is a very different area than District 4. And fire station number 5 is a different kind of station.
Well, now we're here at Columbus Fire Station number 5. This is located on the west side of the city. We have a lot of residential in this area. We have a lot of interstate to cover, so emergencies on the interstate are pretty common. Yeah, it's a great facility.
It was designed in the 1980s by Susana Torre. She's an Argentinian architect, known for thinking closely about how buildings uphold certain gender bias. Specifically, in the case of fire stations, the buildings themselves usually make it quite difficult for women to join the profession, for instance. Torre believes it's important to, quote, change the organization of spaces so women can inhabit them as social agents. The kinds of hostel spaces, that's hostel with an E, of Station 4 with its communal showers and living quarters, doesn't offer much privacy. In response, number 5 was designed specifically to accommodate as many kinds of people as possible to be firefighters. Much of that capability comes from having unique suites for folks to stay in.
I was at Station 4 last week, so I would say here you have it does feel a lot more homey, but you have like the privacy option.
Right. So you share a room with one other person, but you're never staying in that room at the same time.
Once they get their assignment to the facility here, they would have their own designated bedroom. And then they would share that bedroom with the other 2 firefighters who would work the opposite shifts of them.
These suites are aligned down a hallway that share a bathroom that can be closed and used individually. These are arranged in the arms of a U shape that wraps around a courtyard, which helps build a sense of community overall. On the first floor, the U-shape holds the spaces for lounging and cooking and eating. And they're arranged in such a way that they're a little bit more similar to what you might find in, say, an apartment. So like Station 4, the building is split into 2 halves. All these areas for people are on the left, and then the apparatus bay on the right. Connecting the two is the room for storing gear. It's important that the gear gets its own space, since the chemicals that are used to keep it fire retardant are known to cause cancer, and the particulates that it picks up on a call, they aren't healthy either.
As soon as you step in, you can kind of get that odor, and you have
off-gassing.
You can, sure. You can have this could be old fires that they've recently had, but then again, the gear itself.
So this room as a connector means that you can gear up at the last second and get on the truck.
Firefighters would come in, start their shift at 7 a.m. They'd grab this gear, go put it by their apparatus, and they're ready for the day. They check out the engine, make sure they have all the equipment they need, make sure the fuel levels are high. If we need to fuel up, we can. Resupply medical gear if need be, and then we're ready for whatever happens for our 24-hour shift.
There's also 2 round objects in plan. One for the hoses, and then the other for the stair tower that wraps around the pole that the firefighters slide down. When you enter here, you're presented with these round objects right away, so they serve as like important symbols that guide you on your journey. Stations number 4 and 5 are pretty different from one another. One is more about highway rescues, and the other domestic ones. They function differently, look differently, and each have a unique take on its contribution to the cause. They each use ordinary materials, but towards different ends. 5 came after 4, so some of the oversights have been corrected around safety and the needs of the broader range of people joining the profession. This shows just how much these kinds of buildings and their designs are an evolution. Too often, structures like firehouses are deemed too important to be architectural experiments like this. So the safe thing to do is to create something that's merely functional and adequate. But both of these designs venture into new territories and experiment with new configurations and forms. They're not perfect, but the exploration allows us to test things and find out even more possibilities.
Many of our fire stations are built by some of the greats, Susana Torre here, Robert Venturi at Station 4. So future designs, I'm hopeful that we continue to really make what Columbus is, it's unexpected, unforgettable.
Fire stations are really unique structures that not only help protect us, they're also there to make us feel protected, which isn't exactly the same thing. They're products of the latest thinking around safety, design, and community. By looking at them closely, you can read these things in their designs. So maybe look twice at your local fire station, or maybe ask for a tour. The firefighters are more than likely happy to show you around and tell you about their favorite aspects of the station. It's a little bit warm. As we close our look at fire stations, I'm reminded of the simple pleasures that start our day on the right foot. For me, that's always a great cup of coffee. And for the last few months, I've been enjoying something special from Trade Coffee every couple of weeks. This one's my Sparrow's High Five blend that just arrived in this signature red bag. With Trade, it's not just about buying coffee. It's about discovering your new favorites. They really impressed me with their curated selection. This one is super smooth. It's a bold blend of beans, a high five in every sip. Their coffee matching service is like having a personal barista who knows your order by heart, but that you never have to leave your home to enjoy. And isn't that the kind of service that we all want? After learning a bit about your tastes, Trade uses their algorithms to match you with over 55 of the nation's top independent roasters. A subscription to Trade will set you up to receive a new bag of carefully curated coffee at whatever interval that you choose. It's a great way to experience the nation's immense coffee landscape without any of its hassle. And while you're sitting back and enjoying your last few brews, the roasters go to work, timed perfectly for your next delivery, so it's always fresh. There's no more running out of beans and no more last-minute store runs. And if you do end up having any questions or want to speak to someone more about your coffee, Trade's customer service and educational resources are there to guide you through brewing the perfect cup every single time. For those of you who love coffee just as much as I do and appreciate the convenience of having it delivered to your home, Trade is offering a special deal. Head over to the website at the top of the description at drinktrade.com/StewartHicks, and you'll get a free bag of coffee when you subscribe. Or you can just click on the link on the screen. So start your journey to discover your new favorites at drinktrade.com/StewartHicks, and let your mornings start with your own high five, courtesy of Trade.